Happy New Year. In case you've forgotten, Advent is the beginning. Today is the first day of our Christian New Year. Advent marks a change and a shift to remembering our story once again. You might find it funny, but what comes to me first today when I think about the season of Advent and our first week, which is at Holy Comforter, the week we spend some time wondering and thinking about hope. Later on, we're going to think about peace, joy, and love. But today and this week, we're thinking about hope. And I remember one of the first times that I told the story of Noah and the ark in the chapel. And if you haven't seen, we have this beautiful handmade wooden ark and all the animals and Father Noah and Mrs. Noah, and then sometimes I include his children and their wives. But anyway, and it's a beautiful way we tell the story. And at one point, when the flood comes, the storyteller lifts up the ark, and the idea is that all of us in the room are under the ark. And so I have a small group telling the story in small bunches, and I have a small group of about 10 of us. So we're all kind of under the ark and imagining the waters coming, covers everything on the earth but the ark, and then the ark slowly comes down, and then slowly, you know the story, the dry land comes, and all is well. And then at the very end, the storyteller says, which was me at this time, and then God sends a rainbow of color, of light that fills the sky, and God promises to never send this sort of flood again. So then I say to some of the children, so I wonder what the most important part of this story for you is. And a 4.5-year-old, after a little bit of silence, says, boy, I sure am glad I'm not in that water. And, all of his colleagues are, me too. Then a little bit later, another 4.5-year-old says, the most important part is the rainbow, the color of light. And then we worked with the materials a little while, and as chapel was ending, we were lining up, and the same little girl said to me, every time there's rain, I'm going to expect a rainbow. And I thought, yeah, right, expect a rainbow. And that is what we're doing in this season. We are expecting. Advent is anticipation, expectation time of hope and peace, joy, and love. But hope this week that's going to be born, that's going to come on Christmas, right? This hope that we see in this man we know to be Jesus, whose life we remember and we prepare for, and we remember and we remember, but it's fueled with not just wishful thinking about who he used to be, but ignited with hope that moves us forward. We look at his life full of self-offering love and the reality that death never wins. And we know that this is what can be true for us now and for the future. So his life seemed to be a shift in how things go, a new way of how the world will work. I think about our prophet Jeremiah this morning, and like all the prophets, he was trying to get everyone around him to see there is a new way we can be. There can be a society that's full of righteousness and justice and security. We cannot hear the words of Jeremiah enough, even today. Don't you agree? I mean, you all live in the same world I live in. And doesn't it seem like we are lacking justice, righteousness, and security in many ways? Pick your topic, political, theological, whatever, pick it. There's so much wanting for justice, righteousness, and security. And there's one in me, if I'm totally honest, that thinks, great, Jeremiah, I have a great plan. Let's just tell God, send the flood. Didn't work the first time. Let's begin again. Because, and I'm not trying to be flip, there's a part of me that is really tired of us not having it be so. Aren't you? I'm so tired and saddened by hearing injustice and lack of righteousness and lack of security over and over and over again. It seems to me that destruction is always going to happen. And I look at the gospel this morning, and I'm thinking about Jesus and talking about the end time, and I can't wonder if some of the disciples gathered around him were scratching their head and thinking, didn't you hear Noah when we were growing up? Weren't you paying attention? What are you talking about end time? Don't we have the rainbow and all that? Well, maybe, and for some people even today, maybe Jesus was talking about the actual end time. And there are plenty of us today who believe that's exactly what this text is about. The literal end time of the world as we know it. And many of those people are sitting vigil right now, thinking that is what will happen, and that very well could be. And so, yes, the passage is about the actual end time. And part of what Advent holds for us is only one candle at a time as we live in sort of the darkness and the chaos of what is now. But here's another idea. Maybe the passage is also about other sorts of end times, like the chaos and the corruption of our institutions, the life as we know it within our community is going to be different. Maybe it's an end time to our physical bodies. Some people have read this passage and said, this is actually talking about when your body actually dies. Maybe it's talking about something that happens spiritually and personally for each one of us. Like our life is as it is, and suddenly our children move out. Our spouse is gone. Our work is different. I'm suggesting that we can look at this passage as an example of change is inevitable in any way, either cosmically, in how we live together, in how we relate to the planet, and how we understand our lives as creatures of the planet, or how we are spiritually. But no matter how we look at it, the same thread is the same. That there's darkness and that a change is coming. And you know what? It's more than a flood this time. And thank God that we have been submerged in those waters of baptism. Thank God. Thank God we have been washed into them. And guess what? We're not just only going to see a rainbow, but in the sky, Jesus says in our gospel this morning, what you will see is the Son of Man. Do you get it now? So the dry land that we stand on is that relationship with God, with Christ. And what we see in the sky is a rainbow, but at the front of it is the cross. That's our symbol. Yes, destruction, death, chaos happen. Yes. But that's not the end. That gets transformed into a new life, into a new way. What we are holding this first day of our new year is the tension of what we're expecting. The birth of a baby and the end of life as we've known it because of the birth of that baby. So what do we do with that? What do we do with that for the next few weeks as we prepare for him to be born? I invite you to allow God to help you shift your prayers and how you relate to time and to yourself. And here's what I mean. Herbert O'Driscoll, a theologian, said, how about this for Advent? How about we let our lives this season become the manger that the Christ child will be placed into on Christmas? And so that might mean in your prayers, you simply say, here I am. Nothing else. I offer myself to you. Being in conversation, showing up, just being, either right now every Sunday, or every morning when you wake up, or before you go to bed, or on the train, or in your car, whenever you remember it, here I am. My life is the manger. Herbert says, how about then all of our intentions and our motivations are the swaddling clothes that Christ child is wrapped into. I offer my day to you, however it goes. May it always be be seen through the lens of love, a self-offering love that says life wins every time. And so that might mean before you take a test or before you have an important conversation, you just simply for 30 seconds, I offer myself to you. I allow you to wrap myself and my life in your swaddling clothes of love. Do you see? He goes on to say, maybe then our passions, those things that excite us and fuel us, our wonderings, that part of us that's still childlike enough to say, every time I see the rainstorm, I'm going to hope for a rainbow. That wondering, bright-eyed, curious part of us are like the shepherds, and we show up and we kneel to the Christ child and offer that up. And finally, and this is so important for most of us gathered here in this room, that part of us that is so certain, all of our certainties, all of our theories, all of the facts, all of the things we know to be true, what if during Advent we place those like the gifts the Magi gave to the Christ child, and we say, even for 1 second, you actually are King. That's how we might prepare ourselves for the birth of this baby that comes, that changes everything, that says hope is so alive, not just because of how I lived, but because of how you are living and will live. And as we see that, and we know that, these candles, this light, gets brighter and brighter and brighter. Happy New Year.